How are you, Brother Kush?
I'm not good enough. This thing has really affected me, man.
Black people globally calling for a boycotting of, calling for us to think long and hard about how we spend our money.
The question about segregation, about having separate schools, separate hospitals, being separated from Europeans has become much more of an attractive proposition to me.
But this is an old story. Being black, sometimes feeling like it's the worst thing that's ever happened to me.
People like my employers feel like they have to tick a box because they have black employers, and it's so prevalent out there.
Greetings and the warmest of welcomes to this week's ORT.
Audio check one. Well, come along. We're all here now.
Good evening.
Bless.
Hello.
What one?
Good afternoon, good evening, brother and sisters.
Good evening. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone.
How are you, Brother Kush?
I'm not good enough. This thing has really affected me, man. Yeah, man, the thing really get me down, man. You know? And it's quite tiresome. You know, I've been speaking about race and white supremacy for too long now, and you want things to change for the better. So it's just kind of fatiguing. I think she's coming in now. So I was asking Ebony where she wants to come at the topic from. So if you've got an angle, you know, I would very much appreciate it, Brother S. So I hear your voice, though. I must tell you, your voice always cheer me up.
Okay, I'm pleased to hear that. And so does yours, likewise.
Ground control to Major Tom. Kindred, has the eagle landed?
Can you hear me?
Yes, man.
Yes.
Finally.
Major Tom, how you doing?
I'm good. Me and Zoom have been having a love-hate relationship this week.
Okay.
Well,
welcome. Good evening to everyone. Blessings to all of you families. Hope you're well. Kindred, we are looking for an angle on which to come at this from.
Yeah. To be honest, I don't know if I could really come up with a proverb that could capture the range of things that are going through my head at the moment in relation to this.
I have the same thoughts, Kindred, I have to say.
I have one, but I haven't got an angle. I've got a saying though. But and in trying to decide which direction to come at this from, we can think about the initial incident, or we can think about the movement so far, and we can think about the participation of the youth and what that may mean for the future, or what we want to get out of it.
I mean, yeah, I hear all that. I think for me, it's about where is the focus? What is the most prominent story here? Because there's stories within stories with this, and I think what is the story here that I'm catching hold of?
Welcome to this week's ORT. Welcome to our panelists, Ebony Harmony, Kindred Spirit, and Brother S. Today we'll be talking about the killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis on the 25th of May. And we're talking about it in regard to the response to the death that has been captured by a number of different devices, showing different angles, and the whole process of him being stopped up until he passed. And Kindred, you were laying out some of the areas that stood out for you in terms of COVID, the death, filming, and the global response.
We've been, in terms of the incident, we've been here many times. So the incident in itself is not new. But I think there are elements of the response that are interesting. And I think the time that we're in adds another dynamic to this as well. So I'm seeing this a bit differently from how I've seen previous incidents like this, and I'm interested to unpick that a bit. This has a very different feel to it. I think the things that are kind of strong for me at the moment is I think the timing of this is significant because we are just coming out of the heavy restrictions. We're easing our way out of the restrictions from COVID. And it's an emotional time for people anyway, having been on lockdown for all this time. So people are in a very emotional state anyway. So, and I'm seeing sort of outpourings of emotion from different people in different ways. And this incident has been a real kind of catalyst for people venting a lot of that emotion that's about a lot of things. So it's an emotional time. I think this incident, but from start to finish, was captured on film, and we actually saw somebody dying. You see shootings on films, you see other incidents happen, but we saw the whole thing in its entirety. You actually saw somebody lose their life, right? And that, I think, is very powerful for people. And I think in terms of the global reaction to it, I think it's sitting alongside some other things, namely what we are being told about how the COVID has been affected people and where we as Black people stand globally. And I think certain things are starting to resonate with people now, particularly young people. I think there is almost an element of, do you know they have this thing called the law of unintended consequences?
Yup, yeah.
And it's making me think that because people have been on lockdown for a significant period of time, people have been without a lot of the things that they would normally take for granted. They've had to really, sacrifices have been made, and people have had to get through that as best they can. So coming out of this now and having this incident, it's actually the boycotting, this calling for this global boycott of businesses and to make an economic stand, I think is probably to some extent coming on the back of people realizing that it's not fun, but it is possible for us to make sacrifices. So perhaps we need to be making sacrifices in the context of a worthwhile cause. So I think had this happened maybe this time last year, I don't know if the response would have been the same.
So COVID has been the fuel.
Yeah, it's laid the foundation for something. And I think it's got people thinking in a very, very different way, especially young people.
Which people are you talking about? When you're talking about which people in the boycott, which people are you referring to?
I think what we've got Black people globally calling for a boycotting of, calling for us to think long and hard about how we spend our money. Because what we are acknowledging is that a reliance on politics and politicians, a reliance on the justice system, a reliance on people in power, white people, the justice system, whoever, to do the right thing in response to these kinds of incidents is perhaps, we cannot continue to go down that road without backing it up with something more tangible and more solid and something that makes us feel that we are in control. And ultimately, control over our money is something that we can exercise in any way that we want. So it's really asking us to home in on that and using that as a vehicle to push for change.
What's the end game?
That's an interesting question, because what we have is the fact that the wrongdoings of a police officer have been captured on film and widely broadcast, we know does not automatically result in a conviction. So quite what the immediate gain people are looking for is, I don't know. It's much more about trying to bring about a shift in thinking than a tangible gain at this point in time, because there isn't one to be had.
I've come to the view over the last, I suppose, doing some of these shows over the last 2 or 3 months that the question about segregation, about having separate schools, separate hospitals, being separated from Europeans has become much more of an attractive proposition to me. And I don't know if that is part of the end game here. Because I don't know if, with all the goodwill in the world, with some of the responses, you know, Europeans are getting in, white people are out there and saying Black Lives Matter, etc., etc. I have no evidence that we're going to be treated any better.
Mm.
Yeah.
And it's not that I want segregation. It's just that it becomes much more of an attractive thought. Because actually, you know, there has been Europeans and white people speaking up on behalf of the injustices of Black people for centuries. But it always seems to come back to some strong right-wing white figure who use their might and their force to intimidate Black people who are seen as scroungers and leeches on the system. And if we can recall, when Trump came in, one of his first things was to empower the police to go out there and be forceful. And it's interesting that you say a police officer's behavior, but there's a number of police officers and ex-police officers, a father and son who got a Black blogging, and they seem to be really emboldened. And this is after Obama, when we thought actually, you know, there would be a relaxation in terms of the relations between us and white people. But it went right back. The clock was reset with Trump being elected as president.
Yeah. And that's across Europe as well, though. There's been a massive shift with people and Brexit kind of generated a lot of that over here, with people now feeling a lot more bold to make the kind of statements that they wouldn't have done even a few years ago publicly about what they think about Black people being here, or anybody they perceive as being different from them. So there's definitely been a shift.
When COVID came in, the anti-immigrant stance seemed to whittle away, because the immigrants are the ones who work in the care homes, work in the hospitals, who do the kind of social work with the population. And we see, not that we were needed, but the times needed us. But there's this undercurrent within European societies and Europeans thinking that seems to question our legitimacy to be part of society. It seems to always go back there for some.
And possibly, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, just in regards to how it's responded to, we've seen Black men being murdered repeatedly, time and time again. And I think there's a combination of things on this occasion that's perhaps brought about the response that we've seen. With social media, we've had the opportunity, or sad opportunity, I'll say, to watch these things publicly. They're accessible to everybody and shared indiscriminately, whether you want them or not. So, you know, worldwide, people have been able to see these murders by police officers before. But I think the community's response, the immediate community's response, and sway the people across the USA who've responded in protest and, in the manner that we've watched. I think added to that, there seems to be a large percentage of white people who have been vocal and who've demonstrated and participated in demonstrations and so forth across the US, which is now, again, accessible across the world. And I do wonder if this has brought about a response. Let me talk about the UK in regards to how people have then supported that. And again, a large percentage of white people, I would say. I mean, I've just been sent a video of about 100 white people who were outside a tube station and taking the knee. fists in the air, but clearly it's a demonstration, again, with regards to George Floyd. And it just makes me wonder. I think, as I said, because things are so accessible widely, and it's been really public in terms of, and quite very determined in regards to how they responded to it in the USA. I think that's had an impact on how people have perhaps responded here as well.
This is ORT.
They responded to it in the USA. I think that's had an impact on how people have perhaps responded here as well. But it leads me to question, how far are people prepared to go to make a change? I mean, because it's one thing to protest and, take the knee and support the Black community and, be very vocal in your thoughts and your feelings. And I am talking about the white community because, we have very little power, let's be honest, in regards to changing anything. Yeah. And that's not because we don't have the ability, the capacity, or the intelligence to do so, but the powers that be, I would argue, don't respond in the same way as they would to perhaps white people. So I ask, how far are the white people prepared to go? I question, to actually make a change.
Thank you, Sister Ebony, and Sister Kindred, for your thoughts on this. It's very difficult. I think that's an understatement. But this is an old story. Yeah? Mm-hmm. What we have seen in the cold light of day is not uncommon for us, has not been uncommon for us for a long, long time, whether it be the US or here, or in fact in other countries around Europe, and also perhaps not even Europe, but all around the world. There have been too many of this similar type of story, which comes at the cost of human life, which comes at the cost of people who look like me. And in some ways, being Black is the best thing that's ever happened to me, whilst at the same time, sometimes feeling like it's the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And understand me, I wouldn't want to be anything else.
No, we get it.
Yeah?
We get it.
Okay. I'm Black and I'm proud. Yeah? But some days I just feel tired.
Mm-hmm.
I'm tired having to leave my door, wondering how, by the end of day, how my Blackness will impact my ability to be able to just live and to carry out my day's work, or to take my child to school, or to come and be part of a working environment that's tilted to one side, and that actually I'm having to apologize or feeling like I have to just for being present. I'm tired. Now, understand, I will not be broken. I cannot be broken. That is the power that lies within me, right? But I guess now I feel like I'm no longer prepared to apologize for who I am and the blood that runs through my veins and what I represent, both to myself when I look in the mirror and to those who perceive me from their own observations through their own eyes. I'm tired, and I'm not willing to have to apologize for that anymore. I'm not willing to apologize for the color of my thoughts or the color of my mind or indeed the color of my soul. I'm just not willing to apologize anymore. So in thinking about the end game, I'm not even prepared to start thinking about any end game, because what that has meant for us historically, unfortunately, is that we have to be prepared to go back to the people who are holding us down with their knees on our necks, with a begging bowl, to ask them to help us when it appears that their overall agenda throughout time has been to kill us.
Yep.
and to remove us. We have been removed from history. All of the great things that we have done as Africans, long prior to slavery, when we come here in the West, and I was born here in England, right? If it wasn't for my dad specifically giving me books to read that were contrary to the books that I was being given at school, then part of my social conditioning might have meant that I might have walked around with my head in the clouds, not really understanding my blackness and understanding my black history. So I pay homage to him for challenging that and challenging me to challenge those things which were meant to be part of my education, right? So right now, I just want to feel sad, and I want to feel vexed, and I want to feel like I want to feel tired.
Yeah.
And I just want to sit in that place for a while.
Yeah.
The end game and whatever comes, maybe I'll be in a better position to be open to that later on. But right now, I'm hurting.
Yeah, man. I hear
But
that.
here's where my thoughts are. My question about the end game was realistically that there actually won't be an end game.
Mm.
I don't see this as anything, the participation is anything other than I don't believe it because it doesn't go anywhere. And I think sometimes people, or certainly organizations, perhaps are ticking a box. And I say that because, let me just term it as my employers. I am in a group with employers and other colleagues. And there was a message today from one of the colleagues who said that the employers have provided a forum to allow us to talk about our feelings. And I found that very offensive. And I was very clear in the group that actually I don't need to be given permission or to be given a forum to express my feelings.
Yeah.
And I was clear that I was done being herded like sheep. Because, as I said, this is not the first time we've seen it. This is not the first time. It happens in this country. And at no time has a forum been provided or any help of any sort or any, not even help because there is never help, but any acknowledgement or understanding of any form. Has that happened before? So it takes me back to what I was saying. I think it's because it's so worldwide and so public, and as disgusting as the other black men they have killed previous to that, but it's so public now that people like my employers feel like they have to tick a box because they have black employers and it's so prevalent out there. Yeah. So I don't believe there's going to be an end game. And I'm half-heartedly, I'm half laughing when I say, how far are they prepared to go? Nowhere, tick a box. So I'm in the land of reality here. And just as frustrated, and it's an understatement because I haven't actually watched the video in its entirety because I can't. I saw a photograph, I saw the headlines, and that had me in tears. Yeah. Because when I see that man down there, I see my sons, I see my grandsons, I see my husband, I see every black man that I know. And that's not me exaggerating. Yeah, it hurts me to this pit of my stomach. And it's had me in tears. And part of that is frustration and powerlessness. And it's never ending.
Here.
I haven't watched it. I've just seen probably the same snap that you have. I can't watch it, and I won't allow myself to watch it anyway. Yeah. I don't need to. I don't need to see it. I hear what Ebony is saying because it's almost like it becomes a Mexican wave, and people rise up, then they sit back down again, and the status quo continues.
Yeah.
The words of Marcus Garvey that black men won't know themselves till their back is against the wall, I'm sure it didn't mean just black men, is my way of summing this up. But I've done a couple of posts in terms of my WhatsApp reflections, and I think that there's something particular about the treatment of black men. Not just by Europeans, but by other black men and by black women. But it was very much captured by the treatment of George here, in that when Farrakhan or Malcolm X was speaking many years ago about an agenda to kill us, I don't think people really took it on face value, because it's a very ugly proposition to think that there are people out there to kill you. And we've had a period of free market enjoyment, you know, people getting jobs and buying cars and buying homes and having holidays and all the rest of it. And the shoring up of the black male confidence has not been part of the success over the last 30 years. We've just been left with materialism. And that all seemed to fall down, not just with George's killing, but with some of the other stuff that's been happening just within this year. Because one of the things that's been coming to my mind is when you said, Brother S, that when we come on the other side of COVID-19, we've got to be better as people, generally. And yet within COVID, in America, for example, black people have been dying at 3 times the rate, which are connected to socio-economic and political factors. But then there've been killings, outright shootings and asphyxiation of black men, which it just kind of takes away any hope that you may have within certain elements of humanity that we can come out on the other side. The threat of black men, whatever black men pose to the world or pose to white men, it's a very persistent threat in their minds. Something that they have to challenge, something that they have to deal with by any means necessary.
And you see, representative of that knee that man had on George Floyd's neck, his knee was supported by the weight of many other white people in the West.
Yep. Exactly.
Right? The act that he committed was one where he had been given permission. He felt he had been given permission. He was entitled to take this man's life in a way which was less than humane, right? So when you look at the man and you study him and how he is bereft of any humanity as he watches and feels this man's life drain out of his body, and it's unflinching, he's not concerned, right? Who he's taking the life of, he believes is less than human.
No, he knows.
Yes.
Absolutely.
He knows.
He full and well knows. He full and well knows. This was his intention. To the point where he had people observing him, knowing he could see that they had new technology on them. They were filming this. He was still unflinching. It didn't bother him at all. Right? There was no thought of, oh my God, they're catching me in the act. I better try and change the view of this thing so it looks like I'm really trying to help this guy. He was not concerned whatsoever. And in the end, and ladies, at some point, you may or may not feel it fitting to have a look, but I watched the whole thing. And just so you know, when it was all over and the paramedics came, he helped lift the lifeless body up off the ground, and nobody offered CPR, nobody offered any medical support to him, and the guy just went back to his car.
Yeah.
Right? So we saw this. It is evident, and yet with all of that, I still hold little or no hope for justice being served in this case.
I agree.
So do I.
I completely agree. I think we're way past that. We've been, as Chris Rock would say, that bus is always on time. We know exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. A very, very worrying Period. We've got about 3 or 4 minutes left, and I'm interested to hear what you want to say to kind of round this talk up.
I think for me, my first thought is whether or not the impacts that this is having on young people, on the back of everything else recently, COVID, Windrush, I could toss into the equation as well. If all of this stuff collectively really starts to penetrate the consciousness of our young people, and this groundswell really starts to become something more significant, because just hearing snippets of the comments being made by some of our young people, I've been quite impressed with what they've had to say and the level of awareness.
And I agree with that, even though there are suspicions that Black Lives Matter is run by George Soros. I think if you're going out there to defend your people, I'm in agreement with you. So yeah, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Ebony, I was just saying that we're going to be rounding up soon. Any kind of final thoughts?
To be honest, not really, because there's a myriad of thoughts and feelings that are running through me at this moment. So, not really.
Brother S?
Well, I can just hear from Sister Ebony there, where she is with this emotionally, how it's impacted on her. And my heart goes out to her, right? As it does to all my brothers and sisters out there who have been victims of this hardship and victims of police brutality and police injustice. My heart goes out to all of them people, yeah? My brothers and sisters on lockdown, and I ain't talking about COVID. My heart goes out to you out there for getting caught up in the business. And I hope that, you know, when time comes and you're able to come out of that, that you're able to reset, rethink, and prepare for a better life than the one that the justice system has got set up for you.
Thank you all for your time today. On a very somber note, but we need to be somber because we've lost a vital brother. Thank you all. Ebony Harmony, Kindred Spirit, and Brother S. Thank you.
Thank you, people.
Thank you.
Take care. Peace and blessings to all.
Included below are related links to this discussion. Please share, comment, and subscribe. And remember, talk the thing.